Medicare America, I'm Star Parker. And while it is very cold outside here in Washington, D.C., it is hot down the street on Capitol Hill. And in fact, it's so hot, I think I'm going to go down there because there are discussions right now on the budget and the border. And it is not looking really well in those backroom discussions to say, how are we going to solve the problem of the budget and the border with a time clock against us? Yep, a new speaker, Mike Johnson, and a deadline, a looming deadline of government shutdown is in front of him as we start this new year. And some folks on the Hill are not buying the idea that we should compromise with the Biden administration. So I think I'm going to go on over there. I'm going to go over to Capitol Hill, and I'll be back with my panel right after I bring to you some news of what I found out from some of our congressional friends. Met Congressman Ralph Norman before with me because he's a dear friend. He's from the great state of South Carolina, which has my heart, even though I'm a resident of California and work here in D.C. in the swamp. I'm in his office right now. I want to tell you a little bit about him because he is on the cutting edge of the discussions that are happening right now. As I told you earlier, that we are going to look at border matters, budget matters, and later in the show on Israel. Ralph Norman is on the Financial Services Committee, the Rules Committee, the Budget Committee. Wow, you've been busy since you've got here. What, about 6 years ago you came out here?
6 years,
and so now you're Financial Services, Rules, Budget. I think you're doing it deliberately because Ralph is one, what you might want to say is a conservative with a vision to get this place in order. It's fiscal house in order, it's governmental house in order, and all the overreach that it does, he's just not going to put up with. He has consistently demonstrated his dedication to conservative principles throughout his entire political career, and he was in the legislature, the House, in South Carolina. That means that you know Nikki Haley well.
Nikki Haley and I came into the South Carolina House of Representatives in 2005. And got to know her well. She was president of our freshman class, and took on the establishment, and the rest is history.
She did take on the establishment. This is not what the interview is about, but I'm really shocked at how people can change the narrative about someone so quickly just by calling them names. Because I remember when she went into the House, and as governor, she legislated tremendously as a conservative, plus was part of the Tea Party energy. So tell us, is this narrative true or false that she's just global and establishment and Rhino and all the rest of those names?
Well, a couple of things. If you look at my record, I'm the most, or one of the most conservative members in Congress. Yeah, I would not endorse anybody if they were a Rhino, if they were somebody who didn't have core values, if they, and I guess I kind of lump it together, if they're not willing, if they do the right thing, to come home. And Nikki's all of that. She's beat a 30-year incumbent in the State House. Yes, when she ran for governor, she beat a lieutenant governor, a real popular congressman, Gresham Barrett, an AG, beat them all.
Wow.
But she's got a vision. She's likable. She can win this race.
Oh, really? She is likable for sure. And that is not why we're interviewing, because right now you guys have big problems here and now. And it is an election year. So I think that that's why there's so much energy and confusion in the GOP Republican Party, in the grassroots. What is going on when it comes to the border? What has happened, first of all? And then bring us to this moment we're in, to where it doesn't seem like the Republicans can even pull their act together to make sure that we have everything we want with border, but we're not shutting down the government in the meantime.
Here's the overview, Star. And we had a Kevin Roberts with Heritage spoke to our group, Conservative Opportunity, the same group that you spoke to years ago. I said, what is the number one issue for your conservatives that support not just you, but other causes? He said, the border. Wow. I said, well, can you go into detail? He said, yeah. He said, we're losing our country. It's a national threat to our country. The government and a lot of people, the press will not report this, are giving government IDs to the illegals. Photo, which means they can get a gun, they can vote. This is all about power. You cannot have a country without borders. And to make it personal, would you ever have a business that you don't have doors? You don't have locks. Would you ever have a house that you wouldn't? No. But he's doing it for power. And it's not if the terror threat materializes, it's just when.
It's just when. Okay, you said he, meaning the Biden administration. And I think that right now your Congress have opened up hearings of impeachment against the Mayorkas. So tell us a little bit about what do you think is driving this more than just people want to come into our country and power?
Well, the impeachment hearings are good. But look, our number one threat is bankruptcy, is spending more than we make. We took in $5 trillion last year. We spent $7 trillion.
Took in 5, spent 7.
So we're in a deficit of 2.
That sounds like most American households, though. So I wonder maybe that's why it's not connecting to many on the other side of the aisle, that this is not fiscal responsibility.
No, and so Republicans to call it out. Now, the threat of the government shutdown, my position on this is very simple. Either the Biden administration stops letting illegals come in the country, or we're not funding a government that is ruining our republic. We're just not doing it.
Wow. And so you guys are just really putting your stake in the ground. We're talking now about the Freedom Caucus, because this is who is saying, look, it is almost all or nothing. And, there are some that say, wait a minute, you guys, you're pushing against this clock. And somebody's going to blink. Is it really going to be the Biden administration, or are we going to experience a government shutdown? Now, I have looked at the list of what shuts down, and I think I mentioned it before that in our kitchen area next to our water cooler in our office, we have the last time we had a government shutdown, they did this little comic strip and in the newspaper. And so I clipped it and kept it that long. When was that, like 2011 or whenever? And it's this guy sitting on a bar stool and the TV says government shut down. And he then says, could be worse, they could reopen. So I'm looking at some of these departments that are on the list to shut down, and I'm like, could be worse, they could reopen.
Well, and other
But are you guys really going to force this?
I'm not in the majority of thoughts. We had a caucus meeting this morning, and the majority, we can't have a shutdown. We can't have a shutdown. Well,
even in the Freedom Caucus, or this?
No, this is the whole Republican
This is everybody,
caucus.
all Republicans.
Look, if you're scared of, you can't negotiate from fear.
Right.
And this is a legitimate threat. This is like no other time.
You can tell because Democrat mayors are now concerned. And actually, I've been floating an idea that why don't we round them up and put them on these closed military bases that Bill Clinton shut down years ago, because the threat is bigger than even today with the national security issues, the displacement of others in communities that are already hurting, but also the birthers. They're going to have children here, and 14th Amendment protections, unless we come up with some other idea to where they're not just running rampant in society with 3-5-year opportunities to show up in court at that time. They're going to show up with 4-year-olds and 5-year-old children.
I woke up this morning, get this, on TV in New York, it was either 2,000 or 4,000 American students had to be displaced from going to school by letting illegals come in. Right. And fill the classrooms.
That's why I think we have an opportunity, because you're running out of space. I mean, how many hotel rooms can we say put the illegals there? Why in the world? This is madness. So I'm wondering, I of course, working here, know the backlash that comes from having to then reopen the government. The mass media is on the side of the left. Therefore, it's going to narrate through the elections that look what they did to you and that didn't allow you to get your Social Security check and or go to your favorite park.
You get your Social Security check.
I know we do, but that's hard to keep telling people, and the people that know that they're going to get it anyway. But the fear tactics do come. I want to ask you something though about the national security portion of this, and we can talk a lot about it, but I don't want the clock to run out because I know you have so much business over there And I appreciate the business that you're doing to hold the line. But I want to ask you also about the, this terror threat in the national security, because Israel's at war. We are looking at that atrocity of October 7th. And even there, it seems that the Biden administration is talking out of both sides of their mouth. Blinken yesterday was trying to say we're on Israel's side, and they keep bringing up this two-state solution while people are coming into our country from all kinds of countries. Are you making any headway with your colleagues who you said you just left conference to say, guys, this is serious. It's serious enough for us to unify in a make or break moment?
The short answer to your question is no. Oh. They don't, unfortunately. Now, those in Texas get it firsthand, but we're all border states. Yeah. They're flying them on our dime to every country. To every city, particularly the sanctuary cities. Now, what's the sad part about it is actually a good idea. They're going to be asking, like the New Yorkers, Congressman, going to be asking for money to pay for the however many that are in New York. Mm-hmm. Pay for what? We don't have, the Treasury does not have the money. It's
and it doesn't, and it shouldn't. And that's why I think that we should round them up and put them on these military bases and let that become the processing center. Because on that question, which I'm concerned about, is the left is asking for for work permits, that you guys, we wouldn't have to depend on government if you let them work. And this is not working in cities that are already not working.
Well, think about the poor policeman that has to stop a person that he doesn't know, doesn't speak the language, doesn't know his background. It's just illogical, but it's all done for power. For your viewers, this is all done to get them registered to vote, to keep the Democrats in office. And I was down there, not this past time in Texas, but I was down there during COVID, and they had all of them had a cardboard with a number. When you went up to them, and we took a picture, Congressman Miller and I, it was 2 seconds. I didn't know where the girl came from. An American said, "What are you doing?" I said, "We're taking a picture." Can't do that. I said, "Why? We're in Congress. We're investigating. We're going to take your phone." I said, "You're not going to take our phone."
Now, who was she?
She was with the government, NGO.
Oh, wow.
The government. Corey Mills, who, to show you how deep this is, Corey Mills, who's a great congressman from Florida, was in the military and rescued a family that we knew from our area, had to fly his own plane, get his own members. Guess who threatened to shoot him down? The government. No. And he's been on tape saying this. The government threatened to would not pay. That's how deep, for our young people, I feel for them, because it's a takeover. When I was in Cannon and the 400 Muslims came in, we were giving interviews. They were real quiet. Then all of a sudden, all hell broke loose. I said, the problem's going to be when you have guns, and it's coming.
Well, if they have all the paperwork needed, they can go get a gun, especially if they're now in these so-called sanctuary cities to where they have bans on guns, but all the bad guys have them. Where do we go from here? I've got only a minute and a half with you. What is going to happen over this next couple of weeks? You have a looming deadline that we're shutting down. Are you guys going to just push it against even your own colleagues?
Oh, yes. We're going to fight our own colleagues. It's that serious. I don't know how you say this is just another day in paradise. It's not.
Well, Washington does seem like paradise to some. But, they like it out here.
We're going to spread the message. It's against what the majority want, but that's okay. We have difference of opinion. But this is the biggest crisis we faced in a long time. And to lose a country when there's only 12 to 15 now illegals, when it gets to be 60 million, that's when it's going to affect this country.
If I were jumping the border, the first thing I'd do is get pregnant. And then do it again and again and again, because by the time you have to go to court, you got 4 children.
Getting on the government payroll, and I did the math on just the airline tickets alone when I was there. They're flying them all over, was like 20-some billion, 120 million, if you figure 5 million illegals getting on a plane. And when we flew back, we had 10 congressmen, the rest of them were illegals.
Okay, real quick, what's the answer? I know that you guys are saying go back to some of the Trump policies, but what is the answer?
The answer is, as in business or anything else, you're only a team, football team, you're only as good as your weakest link. We have to get people in office to run for office that will stand up and say, look, this has got to stop. We're not, I've seen this real play before. There's no reason why a budget ought to be decided. September 30th was our budget year. Now, you don't start a game in the fourth quarter with 2 minutes left.
That when you had the challenges with a former speaker, that waiting till that last moment
For
was
pressure,
not going to take
for
your
leverage.
resolve, and we see that. And so you're hopeful that out of this will come more resolve for more of the officials that are basically for freedom to win their campaigns and get up here and get a Congress that actually is for we the people?
We the people and the country, the people that signed the Declaration of Independence risk their life. We haven't done that. It's time to step out. And the human factor, when I was down there, to see the male men in with infants, with teenage girls, it is sickening to see. Oh, wow. But we're at a level now we can't sustain, so we'll live to fight another day.
Thank you, Congressman. And I'm glad to hear that we're just going to live another day and might even be able to make it to the border ourselves as Secure America, because we're going to sort through the noise of this news to find the truth.
Thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you.
Today, a student in public school will pray or lead a Bible study. Today, a pastor will preach boldly the truth of the Scriptures without fear of the IRS. Today, the life of an innocent child will be saved, and a mother will experience the joy of a newborn baby. A distraught woman will find hope and choose life rather than death. Today, there is a strong voice defending God's created natural order of marriage and family. There is a defender of freedom in the courtroom and in the halls of Congress and in legislative bodies across the land. Today, all of this is possible because of the ministry of Liberty Counsel. People from all over America will find help and hope because of Liberty Counsel. The adversity they face will be turned into victory, case by case, law by law, person by person. Liberty Counsel is advancing religious freedom, the sanctity of human life, and the family through litigation, education, and public policy. And that is the mission of Liberty Counsel, to restore the culture by advancing life, liberty, and family.
Oh, guys, I'm so sorry I'm late because, I'm over there at Capitol Hill, and I could have gone on forever with Congressman Ralph Norman because we're in a really difficult place here, and I'm leaning toward what Ralph was saying, that, okay, if we can shut down the entire country to get to the place where we can understand what was going on with that COVID, surely we can shut down the government to get to a place where we have understanding that these issues are very, very serious. My goodness, they're telling that's a lot of money. I don't know how much $5 trillion is. I know how much I spend in taxes. And I know how many other people spend in taxes who have don't even have enough money for their groceries these days. So I have assembled a nice panel. In fact, this is the first time for those of you that are seeing our studio working in our new environment. This is the first time we actually have 5 panelists. That is what I have been working toward for the last year. I'm very, very excited, and especially with our new panelist, Laura Reese. Laura Reese, thank you for joining us. She is the Director of Border Security and Immigration. It's a center there at the Heritage Foundation, and I bring a lot of folks from the Heritage. I trust them. I trust their judgment. They are one of the pillar organizations here that has really good thought behind the information they then bring to the public to actually research it first. They don't throw it out there. And so we really do appreciate your work. You're a former acting director, chief of staff, U.S. Department of Homeland Security. Oh, is that when you might know one of my friends, Diana Bannister?
That's right. Yeah, worked with her closely.
You
yeah.
did. Okay, good. Yeah, you had some interesting things over there going on, and really good friends of ours. So, wow, I really now trust you. Richard Manning, you already know him. Richard Manning, Americans for Limited Government. Richard, I'm looking very forward to hearing what you have to say because there are fighters now trying to limit government. Oops. And it's not real nice over there. I had trouble getting off the hill because it's really exciting time. It's heated. Okay, we'll settle for that. Jonathan Alexandre. Yes, ma'am. Yeah, Liberty Counsel Action. You remember last week we had a lot of discussion about his little new baby, and I'm now trying to get him to bring her in so that we can all see her. And we thank you for being here again. And then some of you remember Marty Dannenfelser. He's here at CURE. He is the Vice President of Government Relations and Coalition. So he works with all of the affiliate groups here in Washington, with many of our friends that are on the Hill. And he's the one that actually set up those interviews for us. So we just thank you. And the reason I have Marty with us on this panel discussion is because he will bring to us the inside information we need in simple terms so we can sort through the noise of the news to find truth. Okay, Laura, I'm going to start with you because we have to find truth. You are a specialist in border security and immigration. What is going on to the point that there are many that I would even call courageous to say, we are not moving on this until you guys do something very serious about border reform?
So on the ground, the reality is we're dealing with shockingly historic high numbers of illegal aliens crossing the border. We are at now over 10 million just since President Biden has been in office.
10 million.
That is a combination of who Customs and Border Protection have encountered, plus about 1.8 million known gotaways. Puts us over 10 million. And
what is that known gotaways? Let's talk to people, the fifth grade.
These are illegal aliens who purposely evaded the Border Patrol and snuck into the country.
So they snuck in and Border didn't even know they're here because they're someplace we're kind of knowing. Okay, here they are, and then they just send them up to schools. But these are people that they just got here. Nobody knows where they are, where they're from, or what they plan to do.
The vast majority of the illegal aliens will cross and sit and wait for Border Patrol to come receive them and process them because they know that then they will get a free ticket, bus ticket, plane ticket to wherever they want to go into the U.S. So the gotaways are evading that free plane ticket because they are either on the terror watch list, convicted aggravated felons, smuggling drugs, trafficking people, or some combination thereof, and they don't want to be fingerprinted. And that is the population we have to be most worried about because that's where the national security threats are likely crossing when we know CBP is encountering record levels of aliens from countries that don't like us.
CBP.
Customs and Border Protection.
They're coming in now and just sitting there waiting?
Yeah, 85% of the people who have an encounter with the Border Patrol are released into the country. That's according to the Secretary of Department of Homeland Security just the other day. So that means if they're encountering 100,000 people, 85,000 are coming to a city near you. They're encountering 300,000 a month. That's how many people are coming in. 15% get sent back. 85% are sent into our interior. The gotaways are people who we can see because we've got monitors. We can see them coming in, but they don't encounter our Border Patrol.
They're just running away.
And then there's a third group that you can't miss. They're the ones that are coming in through tunnels that we don't see coming in. And they're being smuggled in the way they smuggle in drugs, through tunnels and other means where the border surveillance doesn't catch them.
Yeah, but
we don't know how many of those are.
They should probably just cement them. But let me ask you then about what Ralph said, that this is about power. In fact, I want to ask you this, Jonathan, because he's telling us that Biden is doing this for power. Who would want their country invaded for power by people that we don't even know who they are?
And I think that's important. There's usually a demographic label that's placed on individuals that are coming over the border, and they try to play the sympathy card saying, these individuals from Latin American countries. The reality is there are 170 different nationals represented coming through the border. So it's not just, the picture that you'll see on the news media when they want to talk about this. It is Chinese nationals that are coming over the border. It's individuals from Islamic countries that do not like America, that want to come to the interior of the country, just like the 300 or so folks that were on the terror watch list that were coming into the country. These are folks that don't like America, don't like our values, but Biden, because he wants the power, are allowing them in. But these are people that are poorly intentioned and that are building terror cells within our country.
Well, Marty, there are two sides to every story, and we heard Ralph, and he's a part of the Freedom Caucus and part of those that are saying, we can't go on like this anymore. Tell us a little bit about what Speaker Mike Johnson's side of the story is, because this is obscene. And I think that this may be an opportunity for Republicans to hold the line, to say, no, we're going to shut down until the Biden administration takes us seriously, that they must do something very significant, not just something, significant to stop this invasion, even if some of the people are just totally innocent, like we're hearing from many of these city mayors, that they just wanted to come in because they're looking for a better life. But by breaking the line to do that, we have a system, and a really good one in our country. So get us inside of the Republicans that are saying, no, let's negotiate with the Biden administration and see if we can get something.
Well, I think one of the points that Congressman Norman alluded to it in the interview was there's this very simple motivation for why this is happening. Why would someone allow all this chaos to take place at the border, all this damage to our country? Even these cities now are overrun, and these liberal mayors in these cities are saying they're overrun. This is all about politics. Joe Biden is allowing millions of people to come in because he sees 95% of those people coming in as voters for his party. That is it in a nutshell. That is the reason this is happening. It's all about politics, and Joe Biden doesn't care about the human consequences of what is taking place at the border. He only cares about the politics of importing millions of new voters because he's losing the voters who already live here with his policies.
Yeah, that is true.
And his party is moving so far to the left, it's losing the center-right capability. So now, as he does this and brings in more people who are going to help them continue to be far left, they're going to become even more extreme as a party. So that's why he's doing this. That's the overriding reason. But I think this is a problem for the Speaker. And I think one of the problems that the Republicans have is they are not unified. The Democrats are unified. Whatever Hakeem Jeffries says, we all vote no, they all vote no. We all vote yes, they all vote yes. So he can go into a negotiation knowing that when he negotiates a deal, his caucus will back him up. That is not happening within the Republican caucus. I think that the Freedom Caucus is right on all of these issues. The border is out of control. The spending is out of control. We need to fix all these things. But it's very hard to fix all those things the way you want to fix them when you have a tiny majority in one house of Congress and you have a president of the other party, you have a Senate of the other party. So I think that they're setting expectations that aren't real and they're fighting within their own conference. I think you should have a majority of your conference first agreeing to do something. When you have 4 or 5 people within a conference who are trying to dictate to the rest of their own conference what the policy is, that's a problem. And that's what leads to this constant chaos. This idea that 8 people took down the last speaker, and now 8 Republicans joined with every single Democrat to take down the last speaker, and now 3 Republicans could join with every single Democrat to take down this speaker.
Okay,
There's something wrong with that process.
Well, there is, but it is the process.
That's part of the problem with why the speaker cannot really govern and negotiate in a way that he can deliver.
Let me have Richard weigh in on this, because it sounds like then there's a trust problem too, that if Mike Johnson is all that everybody said he was going to be, but doesn't have the trust of his caucus to say, even if we need to take incremental steps, we're going to the same place.
I'm going to explain what Marty said in simpler terms. There's a rule of 218 in the House because the number of retirees and people aren't there anymore. It's 216 right now.
Right.
Whoever can get 216 wins.
Right.
Okay? The Republicans have 218 Republicans. The Democrats have 212 Democrats. So it's really 215. So 216 is your number to have a majority. That means Mike Johnson can lose 2 out of his entire conference on any issue and win.
Okay, but
and let me just explain what that means. What it means is when Mike Johnson looks at a government shutdown, and this is where, so this is a tactics question. It's not a strategy question. It's a tactics question. Mike Johnson took 60 Republicans to the border. They weren't the ones who border hawks.
Yeah.
They're the ones who were living in suburban districts and aren't sure about this. He took 60 Republicans at the border to show them the problem, to develop a consensus in the conference that something has to be done on the border. The question is, can you do it in a government shutdown situation when not a majority, but a large number of your conference don't want to shut down the government and will not shut down the government.
But they did get a chance to see the urgency. I saw that. And how many of them then, go ahead, finish it. Laura, I want you to weigh in on this.
Johnson's challenge. So what Johnson is saying is, Joe Biden wants to fund Ukraine. Joe Biden has a bill that funds Ukraine, funds Israel, has some border money in it. So border is a discussion in that bill. That is the bill to sit there and have this fight on, and not the government shutdown, because they are guaranteed to lose the government shutdown. That's the point. You got to win. I want to win.
Okay. I think a lot of people want to win, but now it's win what? Because there are people that are saying inside the Freedom Caucus, it is a win to shut the government down because we need to take this seriously. Laura, we were talking before the show, and you were telling me about how even the NGOs are working with those that are coming in. Now, look, we all are to have a heart of compassion, and when someone sneaks into anywhere and then they're sitting there crying and it's cold, you do want to give them a blanket, but this is a perpetual problem. And you speak into what the two gentlemen just said about the politics side, but then also the human side of the reality of how we're going to maybe fix this mess.
Well, unfortunately, the Biden administration is using NGOs, including many faith-based organizations like Catholic Charities and Lutheran Immigration and Refugee Services and HIAS, et cetera, to facilitate this mass illegal immigration. And it has become a multi-billion-dollar industry for these organizations, and they will fight till, the nail. They will call up their members of Congress saying, don't defund this.
Oh, yeah. They're like the lobby.
I know. They spend a lot of money on lobbyists, and they'll say, we're just helping vulnerable populations. But in reality, they are the machine carrying all of this out.
Okay, so but wait, I don't want you to lose your thought, but I think that I don't want to lose the audience and say, well, what is an NGO? A
non-governmental organization, and they receive grant money from the federal government through many departments.
Okay.
The Department of Homeland Security, the Department of Health and Human Services for unaccompanied alien children, which this administration entices to cross the border. Right. The Department of Justice, the Department of State, et cetera. Lots of pots of money.
Some of the ones on the list of the shutdown, but go ahead.
And that is what Congress needs to target. And they have burned through their money, and they are literally begging for it. You can see it on Twitter. You can see it on TV. Secretary Mayorkas of Homeland Security is begging for money. President Biden the other day on the White House lawn saying, just give me my border security money. The Colorado congressional delegation, the Democrats, have signed a letter and are on Twitter saying, we need money. We're getting more migrants in our cities.
So they're creating this bring all the migrants here, and now we need money to keep them here. And then there are others arguing that we're just going to, if you let them work, get into the question of now they're going to be voting if they're going to be working because they have ID. Weigh in on this, Jonathan.
First of all, I'll say quickly, if the solution that comes out of avoiding government shutdown is just funding it without specific measures on how to spend the money, then it's not enough. One of the solutions come up is, well, why don't we just fund what the DHS is asking for and what Biden's asking for? When Biden receives a lump sum of money, what he does is not continue to build the border wall as H.R. 2 requires him to do. What he does is do environmental remedial care around the border wall. So they're using it to push their environmental agenda. When the governor of Texas places buoys to stop folks from swimming across the river there down at the border.
Because that's where the line is in the country. If they get over that, but go ahead, because I think that's one of the reasons he put those there, because part of the border is in the middle of the water.
Exactly right. Mm-hmm. What DOJ does is fight to say, well, this is an environmental issue. We have to remove those buoys there.
This is nuts.
When there's razor wire
this is not even believable.
That's placed there by the Texas governor, what does DOJ do? This is Biden's administration uses the funds of government to fight to say that we need to get across to have humanitarian or health care given. So it's not just a dollar and cents thing, and unfortunately the budget is only about fiscal matters unless you have some strong language in there that dictates exactly how the executive branch can use the money that they're funded. Then even if we fund the border, we fund Ukraine, and by doing so fund our friends in Israel, we're still going to have the same problem if it's mismanaged.
Well, you know what, I've got to take a break here because I think what I'm going to do, I was looking for my gloves because I'm going to go talk to a senator over there because the Senate is also in this. We just discussed the House side of the equation, but the Senate is involved too, and they seem even more lackadaisical that, what problem? So I'll be right back after this very important message. Oh, I'm so honored to be able to caught up with Senator Ron Johnson. Ron came to Washington in 2010 after a very successful career in manufacturing, and he came here because the federal government is out of control. It's bankrupting America. Is that really the reason you came?
Yes. We were plundering, we were mortgaging our kids' future. It's immoral.
It is immoral.
It's got to stop. Unfortunately, it's not stopping.
Well,
it's actually getting worse.
It is getting worse. And in fact, I spoke to Congressman Ralph Norman, who's part of that Freedom Caucus, as saying, okay, how much more do we have to spend? We're spending $7 trillion. We're bringing in $5 trillion.
Yeah, we're spending about $6.4 trillion.
Okay.
Bringing in less than $5 trillion. So
I guess,
last year we had a $2 trillion deficit.
Wow.
The year before that, we had about $1 trillion. That's not quite the way you scored it because there was an extraordinary item called that student loan, which the Supreme Court ruled unconstitutional. So they counted the spending in 2022 and they gave him credit for not spending it in 2023. But the truth is, get rid of that extraordinary item, and it was $1 trillion deficit in 2022, $2 trillion.
$2 trillion.
But
so you're telling me that on the House side they exaggerate those numbers a little bit?
No. It's just, government accounting is awful.
Yeah.
But in 2019, before the pandemic, the total federal government spending was $4.4 trillion.
Okay.
Now we pretty well laid in a baseline of 6.4. We increased it by $2 trillion in a 4-year period. Again, that was the COVID uniparty blowout. Again, there's not a problem that Washington D.C. sees where the solution isn't more spending.
More spending. And that's on both sides of the aisle. So that's why I so appreciate that the messaging you're bringing and why you even came to Washington. And one of the biggest debates that you're having right now, and you're actually taking lead on, is on this border. Because we have a real problem with the Biden administration, not just the spending part, but this upset in who we are even as a people. Tell me a little bit about what it is that you're doing. What are you guys doing in the secret meetings that you're having? You just left one. I should have gone in there.
What wasn't secret? First of all, I understand this wasn't a problem that Joe Biden inherited. He inherited a largely secure border.
That's true.
This is something he caused.
Right.
Joe Biden and his Democrat allies in Congress want an open border.
Why? This is what I asked Congressman Ralph.
The only thing I can think of is, trust me, the people coming in here, escaping poverty and lack of opportunity. Okay, I understand why people want to be in America. Right. They're highly appreciative of Joe Biden letting them in.
Right.
Okay, so I think the Democrats really want a lot of people. Remember, they're all for mail-in balloting, right?
Right.
Which can be abused by people that are non-U.S. citizens.
So this is really just about power.
I think, that's everything Democrats do. All the Democrats crave is power. Nothing they touch is better off. Socialism doesn't work. It just destroys things.
We know that. Okay, so I'm going to back up a little bit to why they come. It's not rocket science to fix their own countries. We know that if you combine the principles of Christianity, you have a capitalistic environment for business to grow and those virtues, and you have a rule of law rooted in a constitution, it doesn't seem that difficult, even though it might be blood staking like was for our founding, to change their own country. So while, we want to kind of try to feel sorry, and recently with some of these mayors who are now inheriting the problem because Texas is saying, okay, you want to be sanctuary here, this can be solvable, and they're trying to make the case that, those are just poor pitifuls, and they're all, supposed to run away, be refugees, and then we're supposed to open our doors. It's impacting the budget, and now we're sitting here with a House saying, well, maybe we should just shut the government. What are you guys talking about in your not-so-private meetings in the Senate?
First of all, talking about the migrants, I use Venezuela as an example, an oil-rich nation, a very successful South American nation, until Venezuelans voted themselves into poverty. It didn't just happen to them, right? They listened to the siren song.
Oh, you got to say that again. They voted themselves.
Venezuelans voted themselves into poverty because they listened to the siren song of Hugo Chavez preaching, equality, equity, and they voted for it. And they basically had the one man, one vote. They didn't have a fair election after that. Now it's a poverty. A nation in poverty. It's their citizens are starving. 10% of the population at least is left. They're migrating to America, and again, I understand why they want to come to a land of opportunity. The problem is a lot of them come with that same attitude.
Well, we know that too, and we can probably spend a whole hour on that, but your folks may only have a little while with you. But this is the same attitude that we not only see in our inner cities here, that my problems are somebody else's fault. Yes, I'm going to keep voting for people that are giving me the same despair, but we're hearing this same narrative in Gaza. Those folks in Palestine that we're supposed to feel sorry for voted for Hamas.
Right.
Where do we go from here? What were you guys talking about? What is going to happen next week?
So first of all, we have to understand Biden and his Democrat allies' open border is a clear and present danger to America. 6 million people have come into this country illegally, not with a valid asylum claim. They've been let in. We have no idea who these people are. We have no idea where they are. Of that 6 million, 1.7 are what they call known gotaways.
Right.
But that's a misnomer. We don't know who they are. We just detected them coming in. So the this open border is facilitating the multi-billion-dollar business model of some of the most evil people on the planet. Human, sex, drug traffickers. Look at all the overdoses. You know, the young women, how do you think they pay off their human or their trafficking fee? They get put in the sex trade. So this is awful. And when you have Director Wray saying that all the red lights are flashing, foreign terrorist organizations are a real threat. Well, how do you think a foreign fighter could get into America? Well, just through our porous southern border. So again, this is a national security threat. It should be our top priority. But the Biden administration, Democrats, want this. They caused this.
You've said that, but you have colleagues in your Senate that are also not as concerned about these threats that you're saying.
Well,
so
I would say Republicans definitely are. This is something
so guys are solid on it right
we
now.
are unified on. Okay.
Okay.
Again,
so then, what are you going to do?
Well, the concern is again the conundrum in trying to fix this is what leverage can we employ effectively against an administration and Democrats in Congress who want the open border, the cause of the problem.
So folks in the House saying, then let's hold them. Let's hold the line.
So so they want funding for Ukraine. Okay, and I think most Americans are highly sympathetic to the people of Ukraine.
Now the they is the Biden administration or the House?
No, the Biden administration definitely wants funding for Ukraine.
Okay, so you got Ukraine.
We have skeptics. I'm again sympathetic, but this war has to end. I'm a little concerned about adding fuel to the fire. Okay. But anyway,
that is in this discussion of Israel.
That is the leverage we have. The only reason the Democrats are sitting down and trying to negotiate something is for the Ukraine funding, and primarily, again, they don't want a closed border. They want political cover, though.
Okay, so Israel's not in this discussion. So it's just Ukraine border. They want Ukraine so badly that you're saying we're not doing anything on that unless you give us border.
Well, support for Israel is not controversial.
Right, it's not. But is it a part of this same discussion? The
House passed that.
So you guys are okay on that. So now we're down to the wire, and it's about Ukraine funding and border funding.
Using Ukraine funding as some kind of leverage, okay?
Okay.
But again, the conundrum is what forcing mechanism? Because we know President Biden's lawless. I mean, Supreme Court says no eviction moratoriums. He extends them anyway. Student loan forgiveness unconstitutional. He continues.
Anyway.
Again, Mayorkas
He's on your wall, He might be able to hear us.
so Mayorkas isn't, he's not
executing the law. Kind of signed you into the Senate.
I know. That's the process, okay?
Okay, so now you're saying, we know that this is what we have, and we also know that we do not have control of Senate. You guys just don't have that.
So we're trying to use this leverage. James Langford, I think, is doing as good a job as he can. And quite honestly,
he's great.
He is negotiating with Kirsten Sinema, who I worked with on something we called Operation Safe Return with DHS. That morphed into Return to Mexico.
Now, she's a senator that changed her party.
Right, she's independent, but caucuses with the Democrats.
Okay.
But James is, that's one of his primary conduits. But then Chris Murphy is, I think, representing most of the conference, and he's being dragged kicking and screaming into providing something that'll secure the border. So again,
you guys remember Senator Langford from the great state of Oklahoma. You've heard his story here on Cure America. He's a great man. And so what I'm hearing from you is
very
he's now
knowledgeable.
Navigating this.
Yeah, I mean, again, he's got an almost impossible task.
Okay.
I mean, how do you use Ukraine as a leverage to force Democrats to seal the border when they want an open border? So it's not easy, but again.
But is there any progress?
Well, there is progress.
Okay, tell me about that, because if a looming shutdown, this doesn't do well for Republicans in the end, because they have the narrative on the left in the media. We also know we're in an election year, so there is concern that this might not fare well. And then for us in November, matters could get worse.
I've been saying that we would be doing Biden and Democrats a huge political favor if we force them to secure the border. Now, that's just the reality, okay? So we're not playing politics here. We take our responsibility seriously. We're trying to get them to secure the border. So there is progress being made. Democrats are talking about things and agreeing to things they never would have thought of doing. Why? Again, they want Ukraine funding. They also want political cover. They realize this is a huge threat to their re-election chances.
They do, especially when you have these big cities and these big city mayors, and the Dallas mayor flipping parties and became a Republican. You have a big city legislator down in Atlanta flipping parties from Democrat. African Americans are saying, "Wait, what's going on here?" So tell me, what in your perfect world, what you can get out of this? What is it that when you say the border, fix it? What are they?
Well,
Give me three things that you're really looking for.
It's all the changes to the asylum standards, this credible fear standard, which all somebody has to do is say, we're afraid, come on in, wait 10 years for your adjudication process. I mean, it looks
so there are things you can change, but what on the border? Because I actually had an idea that I'm running by folks to say, now that those are in the country and disrupting all reality and they have 14th Amendment standing, why not just round them up and put them on our military bases, the ones that Bill Clinton had closed down, so that we can process them through and get them back to their countries.
They're talking about, and by the way, this would happen the first day because it's already over the trigger point, you basically shut down the border. You take the people, you put them in temporary detention facilities, fingerprint them, and send them back to Mexico. And say you can't try and come back in again. And
so that's one thing.
That would
the
be,
wall is another thing.
And again, if we can force the administration to actually do that,
just that one point, if you can just get that, you think it's a big,
that
huge
itself
victory.
Would be huge. It just would. But again, the devil's in the details.
But what's the next phase? Because we've been here before, Ron, and we keep coming back to this. And I think that when people say comprehensive immigration reform,
this isn't comprehensive immigration reform.
I know it's not, but that's what people are saying they want. And
this is border security.
This is just border security. So you're saying we'll get to the rest of it later.
And by the way, if Trump would have been reelected, I was working with Jared Kushner, Mike Lee, on a true immigration reform. Would have taken care of the DACA kids. Would have taken some like 100 visas, shrunk it down to 6.
You guys were that close. I was here.
Awarded them on a metric basis.
Yeah.
But he didn't get reelected, and then Joe Biden blew open the border. And the first step in immigration reform is we have to secure the border. So we're talking about border security, and we're really not talking about anything other than that.
And that's fine, and that's where we're going to leave it. I only have another minute with you. What was the stop? Why didn't that get over the finish line? Because it was a lot of work into it. It was a compromise, and there was a little bit more amnesty than some people
partly because the DACA was being adjudicated in the Supreme Court, and the decision was made as, well, let's see what the Supreme Court rules on that. They ruled on that, I think, in June of 2020. You're in the election season. And it was unfortunate.
And we were in COVID.
It really was unfortunate.
And we were in,
plus, quite honestly, because the Democrat presidential candidates were talking about ending deportation and free health care, Trump's trough, in terms of the low point, in terms of people coming to this country illegally, was in April of 2020. And then it just steadily started increasing as people thought, hey, the Democrats might win. We might be an open border again. That's, of course, what happened.
That was right at the time that we were also shut down. So he had some, they had limitations of them to come in.
But he pretty well dropped it down to like 30,000 before Title 42 kicked in April 2020. That went from about 1,200 a day to 570. So Title 42 helped, but Trump, through just sheer willpower, using existing laws, secured the border by return to Mexico, threatening Mexico with tariffs, different agreements with Central American countries, safe third country, those types of things. So there are other tools, but you had a president who wants to secure the border. Right now we have a president that wants an open border, and his Democrat friends in the Senate also want an open border.
They want an open border. They know what they're doing. You know what? I could talk to you all day. We'll have to get another interview in the future, but I think what you've just heard is there is passion here in Washington to get this done. We keep hearing over and over again that there's nobody doing anything good out there. You just met someone from the great state of Wisconsin who's going to give me cheese as I leave. I'll be right back. Okay, so now you've heard the Senate side of the story, at least from Senator Ron Johnson, and this is a continuum, but it's affecting you and you know it. I mean, closing schools? Okay, Richard, before we left to go hear from Senator Johnson, you had a thought on what Jonathan was talking about, because it's so complicated, but yet it's really simple.
Jonathan made the point that it's how you spend the money. Joe Biden is asking for money in a separate bill, funding Ukraine, to basically process illegal aliens. He's got no money to deal with the border. It's a matter of the House and the Senate saying, no, We're not going to give you money to bring more people here. We're not going to give you money to house more people. We're going to give you money to shut down the border. We're going to give you money to identify people who are illegally, who are criminals, deport them, and we're going to give you money to make certain that we have a secure border. A country without a border is not a country.
That's right.
And so that's the fight. And that fight's going to happen in the House on appropriations bills, but it's also going to happen with the Ukraine bill that's going to come up. So we've got multiple places, and Speaker Johnson is focused like a laser beam on the Ukraine bill as being the place to do it, because he does not believe he can win that fight in the government shutdown fight.
Got it. Oh, wow. That's so clear right there. And Laura, you know what's interesting is they're actually using, the left is using the refugees from Ukraine as an example of how wonderful our immigration system is, and why can't we just do this for the new migrants? What's the difference?
Well, we're again resulting in these numbers of over 10 million people coming here. I mean, if you
illegally. Yeah, Ukraine are coming. The refugees are coming legally through our system.
Well, I mean, Secretary Mayorkas calls everything he's doing lawful pathways, but in fact they're not. He's violating the immigration laws, going around visa requirements and bringing them directly to the U.S. And he's created a program for many nationalities, including Ukraine, and calling that lawful. So everyone in America thinks, oh, all these people are rightly here, and that's simply not the case.
Yeah, one of the mayor, I think it was of Chicago, is trying to figure out the difference too. And you've explained it well, and I look so forward to you coming back. I hate that we're running out of time now, because this is a continued conversation. Marty, you've been following it for CURE. What should we be thinking about? We've thrown an idea out that the current migrants should just be rounded up and put in our military bases before they start having 2 and 3 and 5 children, because they have so much time between when they get here and they get to court. They know it. You're telling us they know it, and that's why they just come in and sit down. What should we be thinking about as Christian community who does care about people that have need, but don't want to be invaded?
Well, they shouldn't be coming into the country in the first place. They should be remaining in Mexico.
Okay.
We had a policy of remain in Mexico, and when we had that policy, that put a stop to it, and we actually had a cooperative relationship with Mexico to a reasonable degree on trying to stem this flow, and that's all gone away, and that's gone away by design because Joe Biden wanted it to go away. Right. So he wants all these people to come in here. Again, he wants to do this for political reasons. So the thing that we ultimately need to do, because whatever deal we get, we have to then trust Joe Biden and Mayorkas to actually enforce it. And I think Richard has pointed out, I don't think we can trust Joe Biden and Mayorkas to enforce
we know that.
the legislative language. They ignore the Supreme Court on issues relating to student loans and one thing after another. So what has to happen is you have to, first and foremost, have to elect a new president.
Well, that's
and then you have to elect more people to Congress who actually care about the border and spending and national security and issues like that.
Well, it sounds like you might have to replace a few too, because Richard told us, I mean, Speaker Johnson did take people there to say, look, and they came back and they're still ho-humming it. And a lot of this does end up in the court. And Laura just told us that we're looking at a situation that Mayorkas himself is going around the legal law of immigrations and just exposing us to all types of challenges. They're even saying tuberculosis is back in our country. We are really in trouble.
I think that's very important. Folks that are with the one hand playing the sort of innocent migrant that's escaping an economically impoverished country. On the other hand, you have to realize what's also coming across the border, which is the #1 killer of 18 to 45-year-olds, which is fentanyl. The amount of young ladies that literally have to prostitute themselves in order to pay for their transportation across the border, or the tens of thousands, probably hundreds of thousands of minors that are lost in our system, lost in the interior of our system, that our government has allowed to come over, has incentivized to come over, but are now part of one of the largest human trafficking slavery schemes that is occurring in our country. So if you want to play and I think Christians ought to pay attention to the sensibilities and the hurting populations across the country, that's fine. We ought to do that, but know what the incentivizing does as well, and it brings not just all sorts of crimes, but it is actually hurting the people that we otherwise want to care for.
You know, Christian, because on the Christian question, and Laura, you brought it up about this humanitarian part of us, that we really care about people, but we're doing it through government addiction, if you will, because these NGOs are part of the problem. So here on one hand, you have a lot of goodwill people giving monies to these countries that don't seem to fix themselves to where then their folks want to come into our country and actually change the culture of the country. When your first act is illegal, you might do a few other illegal things and get on our systems. California is saying, come welcome to our system, even all of our health benefit. It's out of control. I want you to just chime in. I only have a few minutes, but on the NGO part, what's breaking down inside of an average, I get up and go to church on Sunday morning person, and I really do care about people, and I've actually given to folks that are in countries and build wells and all these other things in these countries. What's breaking down that we can't get a rational decision out of even the Republican Party? Marty's so right that our caucus is not together on this. What's broken down so we can try to fix it?
Well, we have a traditional U.S. refugee admissions program, and that's what Americans think of when we are protecting people from persecution. And yet this administration is going around that as well and drawing them directly to the U.S. without going through that vetting process that refugees go through. And again, using these NGOs to carry this all out. The NGOs receive them from Customs and Border Protection, transport them, feed them, shelter them, give them social services, and then give them attorneys in their deportation proceedings. It is an industrial complex. Wow. And so donor beware as you are donating your money to some of these organizations, because they are in fact facilitating mass illegal immigration.
Wow.
And Americans are very generous and want to help people, but we need to have a safe, orderly, and manageable immigration system each year. And right now we just have chaos and dangerous mass illegal immigration.
Well, we're going to have to continue this conversation here on Cure America, because we do want to sort through the noise of the news and find truth, but we also want to fix the problem. And these gentlemen, thanks guys, because you're here, you're working through, and gal, you're working through with this House, with this Senate to get to the right answer, which is freedom and all of the promises of a free country, including the protections in our Constitution. It is stacked against us now. But I agree with Marty. One change of elections could change it all. I'll be right back after this important message.
I know it's not my words that helps a person. It's God's word. It's the power of the gospel.
God loves you, but sin separates us from God. God sent his son, Jesus Christ, from heaven to this earth to take our sins. He died on a cross for our sins. He was buried for our sins. But on the third day, God raised his son to life. God is patient with us. He's not wanting anyone to perish. The Bible says, but he wants everyone to come in repentance. And so if you come tonight to Christ, you've got to come willing to turn from your sin. You say, well, Franklin, I don't think I can. But you ask Christ into your heart, he'll give you that strength, he'll give you that power. But you've got to be willing to say, God, help me. I want to change. I want to trust you. By faith, trust Jesus Christ.
Thanks for watching another episode of Cure America with Star Parker. Wow, I know that it's a lot of energy in the room, a lot of passion from what you've heard, but it is that serious moment to where, just like in your household, sometimes you have to close the door and just roll up your sleeves and say, we got to get out of this mess. So that is what's happening here. Don't tune it out. Let's get involved in it. Let's make sure that in election time, we get the right in the primaries person that really cares about freedom in our country and cares about the constitutional protections. Let's make sure we're part of the general, and let's make sure that while we're having this discussion, you don't listen to the left to lie to us about whether our side can get to some real answers. Stay tuned for next week. We'll be right back here at Cure America. In the meantime, we know what Ecclesiastes says, that if we just fear God and keep his commandments. That is man's all. That is our responsibility. That's our role to self-govern. And as we do that, we could actually limit the size and scope of government here in Washington, D.C. So we do have a personal role in it. And also remember that CURE is nonprofit, and every dollar helps us continue getting the truth out through Cure America with Star Parker. Thanks. See you again next week.